vamos.
היא הכלכלה השלישית בגודלה, אבל לראשונה מזה 5 שנים, יפן רושמת 2 רבעונים רצופים של צמיחה שלילית, מה שמגדיר אותה דה פקטו כמדינה במיתון. האם הרפורמות במשק של ראש הממשלה שינזו אבה לא עושות את העבודה? היום בכסף עולמי אנחנו שמחים וגאים לארח באולפן שלנו את שגריר יפן בישראל, שיגאו מצוטומי. Good afternoon, His Excellency, how are you? ואת חנה pri-zan, יושבת ראש פעילים ניהול תיק ההשקעות. שלום, חנה.
שלום.
Ambassador Matsutomi, Japan's current economic policies had mixed effects on the economy. Can you tell us about the background behind the actions and what has they achieved so far?
When Prime Minister Abe took the power 3 years ago, he had basically 3 fundamental challenges. First is how to escape from the so-called deflational vicious downward spiral. The second is the demographic change, with the whole population is aging and graying. The third is that aftermath of the great earthquake, which hit Japan 4 years ago. And to achieve those policy goals, I think he promoted 3 basic economic policies. First is so-called quantitative monetary easing, setting the numerical inflation target of 2%. And try to escape deflation. The second is more flexible fiscal stimulus, bigger budget to stimulate the economy. And with those 2 pillars, I think we are now escaping deflation. And we are now into the more steady growth path. So in that sense, I think his policy target is almost met. But as you mentioned, we have a third pillars of economic policy is how to make this steady growth into more dynamic and resilient economy. That's what we are working now.
So, Hannah, how is Japan's stock market reacting to the news?
First of all, to the latest news, it went up approximately 2%. So the market thinks it's not so...
A recession.
Recession, but not such bad news. And if we look from the day that the Abenomics was launched, it went up in yen terms over 100%. So it's 2 and something years.
Yes.
It's really, really impressive. If you translate it into dollar terms, it's 44% up. It's really, really one of the best stock exchanges in this period.
Okay, so optimistic news. Ambassador Matsutomi,
Yes.
let's talk about one of the main issues of the economy in Japan, the workforce.
Workforce.
The new legislation in Japan requires companies to hire more women. How does it influence on the economy and the society in Japan?
Well, I think the order is a bit different. I think, as I say, our population is declining, but we have more women than men in Japanese population. But in the workforce, only 43% of the total workforce is female. So in that sense, we have lots of room to mobilize more female participation to the society. In fact, Prime Minister Abe did 2 things. First is to set a numerical target for the female management, 30%. 30% of CEO has to come from that gender. And second is he introduced a new law, and the Diet approved in August this year, that the companies and the municipal government are encouraged to work upon the action program to promote female employees. So I think according to the action plan, I think more female will participate. But essence is, I'm not talking about just women, how to mobilize every individual in Japan to make contribution to the society through working, through non-profit contributions, and that kind of thing we are trying to achieve.
I assume you approve this new legislation.
Well, I live here, not in Japan,
Yes.
but I'm sure we can share some of our knowledge and experience with the big Japan or small Israel. But
Which sectors nowadays, we can't discuss Japan without talking about Toyota and talking about Sony. Which sectors nowadays had the most effect on the economy in Japan?
First of all, we have to mention as a background another factor, which is the devaluation of the yen, which went 32% down since the Abenomics was launched, which is something that encourages export very, very much, and it has a positive effect on the car industry, as you mentioned, and you mentioned the Toyotas, the Nissans, the Mitsubishis, and many other names. And also the electronics, which you mentioned, also an industry that really was in favor of this act, that the yen became weaker and the expenses of the producers were weaker, so they can sell more, export more, because the Japanese economy is more oriented on export.
How can we be exposed to the Japanese market?
Of course, it depends on our portfolio and our risk appetite, but if we think that we want to invest in Japan, we can do it directly in Japanese stocks and see which stocks are really recommended. And I have to mention that some of the companies that I just mentioned, they went out since the launch of the Abenomics, like more than 200%. So, but some of them are still recommended. So you can buy them directly, or you can buy mutual funds or ETFs that invest in Japan.
Yes, Ambassador Matsutomi, let's talk a little bit about the economic relationships between Israel and Japan. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Abe visited Israel alongside the delegation, included officials and head of leading companies. What are the possible economic opportunities that you see for those countries?
As Hana-san depicted, the corporate profits of Japanese companies are very good. In fact, record high. So against this background, corporate is trying to diversify the investment destinations. And at the same time, many manufacturers, particularly mega manufacturers, are reviewing their, what can I say, too much dependence on the in-house laboratories for applied technology. They try to seek more and more outsourcing and networking for new technology. So in that sense, I think Israel is a natural target. So I think they are paying more attention to Israel. In fact, those exchange of prime ministers visit, and in between we have a government-sponsored business forum. I think that sends a very strong message to Japanese business. Now is the time to do business with this side.
So now is the time to do business.
Yes.
And thank you very much for being here, Ambassador Shigeru Matsutomi. Thank you very much, חנה pri-zan. אתם תמשיכו לעקוב, כי זה שווה לכם כסף. ועד כאן כסף עולמי להיום.